For more on the U.S. trade war with Europe, we turn now to Jovita Nulipshina, the European Union's ambassador to the United States. Madam Ambassador, welcome back to the NewsHour. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
So as we reported, these tariffs largely target products made in Republican states, products from Kansas and Nebraska, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana. Is it your hope here that Republican lawmakers will speak up and apply pressure to President Trump to roll back the tariffs? Or do you hope that President Trump starts to lose support from his base in these states?
Well, first of all, let's start from the beginning. We actually deeply regret that the tariffs are introduced for the EU products on steel and aluminum. We never saw the tariffs as really the measure to foster trade, and we see it actually it will as a harm for the transatlantic trade relations. So but we have to react, and our reaction will be prompt, and we will reinstitute the tariffs we already had and discussed back in 2018 and 2020.
And is it your hope here that Republican lawmakers will see that and want to save their states and start to apply pressure? Have you been in touch with any of them?
Well, we really had a lot of conversations with senators and congressmen here in DC, trying to send one single message that tariffs are really not for the best of the transatlantic relations. So we hope that everyone can send a message, the same message.
We did see how quickly the terms, even between the U.S. and Ontario, for example, there was an escalation there, then it was a quick de-escalation. You saw Ontario slapped a surcharge on electricity exports 24 hours later after a call between the premier there and the U.S. Commerce Secretary. Ontario rolled back that surcharge, and now the two are meeting in Washington tomorrow. What would it take for the EU to roll back your tariffs?
We stand ready for talks and for the negotiations. We repeatedly expressed our interest in talking, and if you probably noticed that we not only published our intended reciprocal measures, we as well informed public that they come into effect as of 1st of April. So there is enough time for the conversations.
And is it your hope that something happens before April 1st that means you don't have to put the tariffs into place?
Well, we always have a hope for the really constructive talks, because none of us will benefit from the tariffs, because it's raised the costs for the business. It may inflict inflation in the U.S. It weakens in general supply chains, which are the supply chains of transatlantic partners, and in general, supply chains of allies. So we don't see how it could be beneficial for both sides of Atlantic.
Madam Ambassador, as you know, when the EU Trade Commissioner was here in Washington to meet with the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, last month, he was trying to head off these tariffs. He came out of that meeting and he said, quote, "The EU is not the problem." Is Commerce Secretary Lutnick someone you can work with on this? And if not, who in the White House can you work with?
Well, of course, Commerce Secretary of Commerce Lutnick is really our prime contact, as well as USTR Greer. We are ready to talk. Whoever is willing to talk and make an action that those tariffs would be reversed.
You say you're ready to talk. Is it fair to say those conversations are already underway?
Well, we always here to have them, and we already, as you mentioned, we already had a very in-depth conversation with Secretary Lutnick, and we are ready to continue them.
Let me ask you about the U.S. tariffs on steel, because the EU does stand to lose millions of tons in steel exports under those tariffs. As you know, the U.S. is the second biggest export market for EU steel. We know European markets were already deeply impacted by the energy crisis that was spurred by Russia's war in Ukraine. What has been and what could be the impact of those tariffs, not just on the EU steel industry, but on European economies?
As the EU, we are not the major trading partner in steel and aluminum for US, so we don't constitute a problem. Since 2018, our exports of steel and aluminum actually decreased. I really do believe that the impact for economies is always there, because we not only it's not only impacts the certain sector which actually get tariffs on, but as well the services around that. It contributes to the weakening of the trade links and the trust of the supply chains.
Madam Ambassador, beyond commodities, the EU bought an estimated $61 billion of military equipment from the U.S. between 2022 and 2024. And as you know, after the U.S. cut off arms and intelligence support to Ukraine, there were a number of European leaders who were reportedly very worried that the U.S. could do the same to them. Will the EU continue to buy military equipment from the U.S.? Do you see that changing?
Well, so far as we see from the reports, we have no evidence that U.S. would be cutting some kind of the sales or productions for the European countries, and we very much rely on the supplies from U.S. Because a lot of NATO capabilities actually are built on U.S. platforms.
But is there a concern about the reliance on America? I mean, is the U.S. still considered a reliable partner to you on this front?
We spend almost 60% of our defense budgets in acquiring capabilities, ammunition, and different defense-related products from U.S. I really strongly believe it will remain so.
That is the European Union's ambassador to the United States, Jovita Nalipshina, joining us tonight. Madam Ambassador, thank you so much for your time. Good to speak with you.
Thank you.